pizza verse strong. Motherfucking strong.
Bambi Palermo running around Pizzaverse. Fuck you and Pizzaverse.
Fucking Pizzaverse strong, motherfucker. Fuck Tony Pizza.
Well, Pizzaverse strong.
If Bambi Palermo ever rolled up on me, I'd stuff her in her own trunk.
Everybody likes to gamble. You see, when a guy called Bugsy Siegel drove out west to a cow town called Las Vegas and built the first casino, the mob had created a serious cash cow. All they needed was to make sure it kept on bringing in gamblers with dreams, and obviously the muscle to make sure nobody messed it all up. Chicago's underworld had a serious rep going all the way back to guys like Capone, Bugs Moran, and Big Jim Colosimo. They struck an under-the-table deal with the Teamsters, dipping into their pension fund to build casinos in the desert. And what happened to the money the casinos made? Well, they called it the Skim. It was when a guy walked into the casino with an empty suitcase and walked out with it loaded with cash. No questions asked. But they needed a guy to make sure everything ran smoothly and nobody messed around. After all, there was too much at stake. And that's why the boss of the Chicago outfit, Sam Giancana, dispatched Tony Spilotro to take care of the Golden Goose.
You know I get calls from back home every day. They think you went bad shit. You can warn, don't ever go over my head again.
In the world of organized crime, rules weren't just guidelines, they were gospel. And when someone broke those rules, the consequences were swift and brutal. When mob associates Ronnie and Phil Scarvo were gunned down in an unsanctioned hit, the outfit's bosses were livid. Their investigation pointed to two small-time hoodlums, Billy McCarthy and Jimmy Miralia. The hit had to be avenged, and the job was handed to Spilotro, a man who had learned the art of murder from Chicago's most sadistic gangster, Mad Sam DeStefano.
No matter how big a guy might be, Tony would take him on. You beat Tony with fists, he comes back with a bat. You beat him with a knife, he comes back with a shine box. And if you beat him with a shine box, you better kill him, because he'll keep coming back and back until one of you is dead.
Spilotro wasn't one for half measures. With the help of his childhood friend Frank Carlotta, he captured McCarthy and dragged him to a basement. Days of relentless torture followed, culminating in one of the mob's most infamous methods, the vice. Spilotro cranked the handle, forcing him to cough up the name of his partner, Jimmy Miralia. Miralia's fate was sealed. Spilotro's crew tracked him down at a lounge bar, beat him senseless, and locked him in a storage room overnight. By the time they returned, Miralia was drunk, having raided the liquor supply. They stuffed him into the trunk of a car, but during the drive to his execution, Miralia tried to sabotage the brake light wiring, a desperate, last-ditch bid for survival. It didn't work. When he tried to escape, they caught him and stuffed him back into the trunk.
They whacked him at the same place McCarthy's body was being kept. The message had been sent. Mess with the outfit and you'll find out.
The gruesome saga would go down in history as the M&M murders. By the late 1960s, billionaire recluse Howard Hughes had shaken up Las Vegas. He bought out mob-connected casinos like the Desert Inn, opening the door for corporate America to step into the casino business. But while Hughes and his clean-cut investors grabbed the headlines, organized crime wasn't about to lose its grip on Sin City. The problem for the mob was visibility. Everyone knew who really ran the casinos, and the heat was getting unbearable. They needed a frontman, someone with a spotless reputation who could pass scrutiny from regulators and law enforcement. Enter Alan Glick, a young real estate developer and head of Argent Corporation. With a clean military record and glowing reviews in background checks, Glick seemed like the perfect guy to put between the mob and the authorities. What regulators didn't know was that Glick's operation was fueled by loans from the Teamsters Pension Fund, overseen by Alan Dorfman, a fixer with ties to legendary union boss Jimmy Hoffa. Backed by mob cash, Glick acquired the Stardust, Fremont, and Hacienda casinos in 1974. On the surface, he looked like the legitimate face of Vegas. Behind the scenes, however, the real bosses were raking in millions.
The casinos were perfect. It was like a license to print money. The best part was that nobody was watching too closely. Every night, cash would just vanish right out of the count rooms. You'd have a guy walk in, fill a suitcase with unrecorded bills, and stroll out the back door like it was no big deal. Nobody said a word because everyone was on the take. They called it the Skim. That money didn't stick around Vegas for long. It went straight back to the bosses in Chicago, Kansas City, Milwaukee, and Cleveland. Couriers would carry it out, hand-delivered, clean as a whistle. And the gaming regulators, they didn't have a clue. It was like stealing candy from a baby.
To keep the Skim running smoothly, the mob needed men on the inside. Their top pick was Frank "Lefty" Rosenthal, a brilliant oddsmaker who was put in charge of operations at the Stardust and Fremont casinos. Rosenthal was the brain, the man who kept the casinos profitable while the mob siphoned off its cut. But brains alone weren't enough. The mob also needed muscle, someone to keep everyone in line and ensure no one jeopardized the operation. In Vegas, he was tasked with watching over Rosenthal and protecting the outfit's interests.
That guy was Tony Spilatro. In Vegas, his job was to watch Rosenthal's ass and protect the Skim. They put Glick in as the front guy. So Rosenthal's watching Glick. Spilatro is watching Rosenthal. But who was watching Spilatro? The answer? You guessed it. Nobody.
Spilatro wasted no time setting up shop. Initially, he operated out of the gift shop at Circus Circus. But after being banned from casinos, thanks to Nevada's infamous Black Book, he moved to the Gold Rush jewelry store on West Sahara Avenue. From there, he ran a fencing operation with his childhood friend and lieutenant, Herbie "Fat Herbie" Blitzstein. Spilatro wasn't content with overseeing the Skim. He expanded his criminal empire, assembling a burglary crew known as the Hole in the Wall Gang. The nickname came from their signature technique, drilling through walls and ceilings to loot businesses without triggering alarms. For years, Spilatro managed to stay one step ahead of the law, thanks to his high-profile defense attorney, Oscar Goodman. Goodman, a master of media spin, became Spilatro's mouthpiece, turning legal battles into public spectacles.
Tony Spilatro, to retain Oscar Goodman, he's got to have a lot of money. Where does the money come from?
I assume whatever monies I get from... I don't ask him. All I know is when Mr. Spilatro is with me, he's a kind, decent, attentive, genteel person.
Charlie M., you make me pop your eye out of your head to protect that piece of shit! Charlie M.!
This man who was alleged to have...
This man who is a creation of law enforcement's vivid imagination.
Put somebody's head in a vise until the eyes popped out?
I represented him on that case, and the judge found that the witness who testified as to the vice and the eyes and all of that nonsense was a liar.
Is it conceivable, Mr. Goodman, you're just turning your eyes away from where your clients get their money? You don't want to ask too many questions? Intentional ignorance of where they get their money?
Thanks to Goodman, Spilatro avoided prison. But the pressure was mounting. In 1979, Spilotro was banned from casinos after landing in Nevada's infamous Black Book, a list of people barred from the industry. By 1981, federal authorities were circling, investigating the skimming operations and Spilotro's ever-expanding criminal activities. As law enforcement closed in and the outfit's operations began to crumble, Spilotro's ruthless tactics and flashy lifestyle would ultimately lead to his downfall.
One of Spilotro's guys gets clipped by the cops in Vegas and the guy sees red, so he puts a contract out on 2 of the officers who did it. Now that's crossing a line and everybody knows it. Cops are off limits. It's a rule that keeps things from spiraling out of control. But Spilotro? He didn't care. He was ready to break the rules, even if it got him whacked. Word gets back to Kent Clifford, the big boss of the Las Vegas Metro Police. Clifford ain't no pushover.
What are you prepared to do? Because they won't give up the fight. Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago.
He packs his bags and takes a trip to Chicago to have a little sit-down with the bosses. He tells them straight, if one of your guys so much as touches my cops, I'm bringing 40 of my guys to Chicago, and we're taking out everything that moves around your houses. That's no idle threat. It's a declaration of war. The bosses got the message loud and clear. They yanked on Spilotro's leash, made sure he backed off, and the contracts quietly disappeared. Clifford wasn't a guy to mess with, and even the bosses knew better than to push their luck.
The beginning of the end came when the Hole in the Wall gang botched a burglary at Bertha's gift shop in 1981. Caught in the act, several gang members, including Spilotro's old friend Frank Carlotta, were arrested. Facing a mountain of charges and fearing for his life, Carlotta flipped, spilling the secrets of Spilotro's operations and delivering a crushing blow to the outfit.
They approached me while I was in the Clark County jail, and the feds did. And he said to me, he says that there was a contract out of my life. And I looked at him and I laughed, and I says, Bull, I said, I know what you guys are up to. I said, you're trying to get me to roll. I said, that ain't gonna happen. He said, this is our, he said, I don't, he said, we're compelled to tell you this. I said, all right.
His affair with Jerry Rosenthal, Lefty's wife, was seen as a dangerous liability. His flashy lifestyle and real estate investments didn't help either. For the bosses, Tony Spilotro was no longer an asset. He was a liability. By 1986, Spilotro's world was unraveling. He faced multiple indictments, including charges of racketeering and attempted extortion. Despite his attorney, Oscar Goodman, expressing confidence in beating the charges, the Chicago outfit wasn't willing to gamble on Spilotro's luck or Goodman's skills. The mob bosses had decided enough was enough. Their order was chillingly direct. I don't care how you do it. Get him. I want him out.
By the 80s, Dorfman's number was up. The guy had been nailed for bribery and was staring down some serious time in the can. Word on the street was, the outfit didn't like the idea of him getting cozy with the feds. Pressure makes guys talk, and Dorfman knew too much, way too much. So the bosses made the call. He had to go.
At least 4 people saw Alan Dorfman gunned down in the hotel parking lot in Lincolnwood. This is how they remember the gunman. 6 feet 2 inches tall, weighing perhaps 240 to 260 pounds, 36 to 40 years old. He had a full beard. And there was a second man, younger, perhaps 30, and shorter, under 6 feet. He was of average build. They apparently waited until Dorfman had parked his Cadillac in the Hyatt parking lot and began walking with a companion, Irwin Weiner, to the hotel restaurant 100 feet or more away. As Dorfman passed between 2 parked cars, the killers came up from behind.
It was a message loud and clear. Cross the outfit or even think about talking, and you end up in a parking lot just like him.
The outfit devised a plan to eliminate Spilotro and his younger brother, Michael. The brothers were lured to a meeting in Bensonville, Illinois, with the promise of a promotion for Tony and the prospect of Michael becoming a made man. But as they drove away from Tony's Oak Park home on June 14, 1986, the brothers seemed to sense their fate. Michael reportedly told someone that if he didn't return, it was no good. His wife later testified that he had removed all his valuables and told her he loved her repeatedly before leaving. The Spilotros arrived at the Bensonville house, but instead of a promotion, they were met by a mob hit squad. According to later testimony from Nick Calabrese, who became a government informant, the brothers were taken to the basement where their execution awaited. Michael was tackled and strangled with a rope, while Tony, defiant to the end, reportedly asked, "Can I say a prayer before meeting the same fate?" Their bodies were driven to a cornfield in Enos, Indiana, where they were buried in a shallow grave. 9 days later, a farmer discovered the grave, and the brutal details of the Spilotros' deaths emerged. Their bodies bore the marks of a savage beating, with forensic evidence revealing that they had been punched and kicked to death. Contrary to the dramatized depiction in Casino, they were not buried alive or beaten with baseball bats. The discovery of their bodies sent shockwaves through Chicago and Las Vegas, but even in death, the Spilotros were denied peace. The Chicago Archdiocese barred them from receiving Catholic funerals due to their ties to organized crime. A private service was held instead, followed by their burial in the family plot at Queen of Heaven Cemetery in Hillside, Illinois. Tony Spilotro's fall from power marked the end of an era for the Chicago outfit's operations in Las Vegas, but his violent demise became one of the most infamous chapters in mob history, a cautionary tale of ambition, betrayal, and the ruthless nature of organized crime.
When Rosenthal bought it in 2008, it was alleged the guy had been working with the feds for decades. Yeah, you heard me. Old Rosenthal, the slick operator everyone thought was untouchable, was actually a snitch. The feds had him under the codename Achilles, and he fed them enough dirt to bury half the outfit. The Skim, mob rackets, murders, you name it, he was spilling it. Exactly how much he gave up? That's still fuzzy. Rosenthal ratted on high-level mob hits, big ones. We're talking about the murders of Sam Giancana and Johnny Roselli, one of the most respected names in Chicago and Los Angeles. And here's the kicker. Rosenthal even helped the cops solve the murders of a few guys who got clipped after breaking into Tony Accardo's place. The guy didn't just cross the line, he danced on it. For someone who was supposed to be part of the life, Rosenthal sure had a lot to say to Uncle Sam. It looked like Rosenthal stacked up the odds and made the decision years before things came to a head. It sure would explain how he came out relatively unscathed from the whole damn thing. Apart from surviving a car bomb, of course. But like I said, it was alleged he was a rat. I'll leave it to you to decide.
The murder of Tony Spilotro marked the end of the mob's dominance in Las Vegas. The city would eventually be taken over by corporations, and the neon lights would shine without the shadows of organized crime. But Spilotro's story remains a cautionary tale, a grim reminder of the ruthless efficiency of the mob and the ultimate price of betrayal.
Even in death, Spilotro wasn't spared the mob's cold-blooded code. His killers attended his wake, a final show of dominance in a world where loyalty only went so far. In the end, Spilotro's story wasn't just about crime, It was about the rise and fall of an empire built on greed, violence, and ambition. As for Tony the Ant Spilotro, he forgot the cardinal rule of the mob. The house always wins.